Previously on Wine Wars.
Hello, Wine Warriors. It is I, your penultimate host, Scott, giving a little intro for this week's episode. So if you've heard our special announcement last Sunday, then you know what today's episode is all about. If you didn't, then here's a little spiel. So today's episode is different from what we normally would do. A few weeks ago, we were contacted by a gentleman named Brian McCann, who works out of Chicago in the wine industry, and he's putting on a digital wine summit called the Road to Wine Expert Summit. What that is a gathering of 30-plus individuals in the wine industry, ranging from amateurs such as ourselves in the podcasting industry, all the way up to masters of wine, master sommeliers, and he's interviewing all these people one-on-one or one-on-two, kind of figuring out what it was that brought these people into the wine world and what their journey was, and any advice that they may have for others kind of in similar situations. So you may be thinking about leaving your job and moving into the wine industry, and that can be a very scary thought. So he interviews these people who have gone through this journey to get any tidbits of advice that they may have for others in that situation. And it's today, I'm recording this on Monday, so the summit has been going. It started today, and I've already listened to several of the interviews, and it has been very, very inspirational. Has gotten me thinking a lot more about just what wine is, what that means to me, what the goals of the show even are here, what we're doing, and it's got me rethinking a few things and maybe trying to hone in a little more of what we want to do here. But this is a free event. If you go to roadtowineexpert.com/summit, and I'll have a hyperlink in the show notes here today. You go sign up, and all of these interviews are available for 48 hours for free. If you miss that window, if you're listening to this episode in the future and you want to check this out, you can go to the website and you sign up for a premium pass, and then you can access all these interviews at any point in time that you want. And then you can also get audio versions, essentially podcast versions as well. So again, he's got really cool people on this. So other podcasters is Elizabeth Schneider from Wine for Normal People. So if you listen to our podcast, you probably listen to Elizabeth's podcast as well. He's got Chappie O'Trell, Crew Podcast, Ray Pfister from The Life Between the Vines. But he's got more than just podcasters. He's got bloggers on there. He's got Chell Petrus from Chell Loves Wine, Brianna Lamb from Bree's Glass of Wine, Alexandria Sanchez from Lady Somm. He's got authors. He's got Bianca Bosker, who just released her book Cork Dork a few months ago, which was another one that I blasted through that audiobook in about a week or two, and it was another one that really made me sit and ponder what does wine mean to me, both individually and to the world around me. And if you have Audible, you should get that book right away. If you don't have Audible, hey, you're in luck, because you can go to audibletrial.com/winewars, and you can download that book for free, and you get 30 days to listen to it. He's also got George Tabor, who wrote The Judgment of Paris, which is that was an event back in the 70s where France and California had a blind wine tasting competition, pitting their best reds and whites against each other. And the U.S. won, and France freaked out, and it put California on the map as a place to really be taken seriously. So that's actually the audiobook I'm currently in the middle of. So again, if that sounds a little more interesting to you, you can go to audibletrial.com/winewars and get that book for free. He's also got master sommeliers on here. So Brian McClintock, who was one of the sommeliers going through the master sommelier program on the documentary Somm, SOMM. Again, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have seen that documentary. If you haven't, you should go watch it. But he's got Brian on here asking him about his journey into the wine world, and I'm sure he's going to get into the details of what it was like being on that documentary and kind of the concept of, celebrity sommeliers in the wine world and what that means. Again, what does that mean to the wine consumer? Is that good? Is it bad? So I'm actually looking forward to that interview a lot. He's also got on here Nikki and Erica from Yes Way Rosé, who can partially be credited for the rise in Rosé's popularity lately. So much so that in our shipment of Wink wine this month, we actually had a bottle of Rosé from Yes Way Rosé, the Summer Waters Rosé, which I'm very much looking forward to cracking that open on a warm summer day. And man, are they getting warm here in Wisconsin. Warm and muggy. If you want to get yourself a bottle of that Summer Water Rosé from Wink, you can do that by going to trywink.com/winewars. Get $20 off your first shipment of 4 bottles of wine. But anyway, this is a really cool event. You should go check it out. Hyperlink in the show notes. I'm going to stop talking so you can get to the interview. So today's episode is our interview that we did, Emigh and myself did with Brian. He was kind enough to have us involved in this event, and I would really, when I was reviewing the list of people on this summit, I was really blown away that he included us in this. So thank you, Brian, very much for having us on this summit. We're going to try to get him on the show so we can reverse the tables here and ask him all the same questions of what got him into the wine world and what wine means to him and where he's looking to go from this, because this is a really cool event, trying to break things down, make it accessible for, wine novices, people at large. And I'm actually really interested to see where he goes from here, if he continues doing this annually, or maybe it even becomes a live event. Who knows? Maybe I'll put that bug in his ear when I get to talk to him. Anyway, that's enough jabbering from me for today. Go check out this event. Thank you for listening. And remember, as always, until next time, it's just grape juice.
Wine Wars, the show with four friends who love three things: wine and Star Wars.
Part of me really wanted to cue this interview up with the Star Wars theme, but that has to be some kind of giant copyright infringement. And in fact, I don't even know if I can keep saying the word Star Wars over and over again. But Wine Wars podcast, I can say, and Scott and Emigh Canada are both co-hosts on that show. I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with the two of them at the same time. So we've got three people in the round, and it feels a lot like the Wine Wars podcast itself, which has four people talking about wine. It was a real pleasure talking to them. I feel like I'm part of the Wine Wars team as a result, and I cannot wait to grab a glass with Scott and Emigh in the future. So please enjoy my conversation with Scott and Emigh.
Well, I'll start maybe, I guess.
I'll let you start.
So I've, drank wine, early 20s, but for the most part, it wasn't really a big thing for me. I'm a musician. I went to school for music up in St. Paul, and then moved down to Madison, Wisconsin in my early 20s, and started working at a music shop with this guy named Jason, who was pretty into wine. And then I eventually joined his band and started hanging out with him and his girlfriend at the time, now wife, a lot more. And they were kind of connected in a way to the wine world via the band. I had some investors who also owned a bistro, wine bistro, called Wine Maniacs in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. And through that, I kind of got introduced into the world of wine more. And then when we were on tour, we were playing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in Dinkytown. What's the name of that restaurant? Not Luring Pasta Bar?
Yeah.
Luring Pasta Bar, which is a phenomenal restaurant, really cool art style.
It's very eclectic decor.
Yeah.
Lots of colors everywhere.
And we were having a meal and a pasta dish of some kind. And Jason ordered a bottle of Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. I don't remember the producer or anything like that, but I remember it being a wine that just, it was the wine that, something hit a nerve, or a taste bud, rather. And it really just kind of set me off of, whoa, what's going on here? Took a picture of it on my phone, came back home and took it to the local wine shop and said, do you have this? And they said, well, I don't have that producer, but we have that grape. So that's really where I started to get really involved in trying to understand wine more than White Zin or Cabernet Sauvignon, the standards that as a novice wine drinker. And then from there, it just kind of built over time. Started doing home winemaking a few years ago. Emigh got me a kit for Christmas from a wine and hop shop here in Madison, Wisconsin, which kind of gets you into the more sciencey side of things, the more wine nerd side of things, which is kind of my role on the show. Is I'm the nerd and they're all the entertainment. So that's kind of how I got into it. That bottle of Montepulciano really triggered something for me to say there's something more going on here than just a Miller Lite or Coors or something like that. So.
I love that he remembers the bottle that was like your gateway drug into.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the picture of it anymore. I got rid of that phone, but yeah, that was. I could probably even track down the day. look up the gig, and then I could figure out the day. So that's me.
Yeah.
What about you?
Mine is not a very detailed story the way yours is. Mine was like, my experience was my girlfriends and I would walk to the grocery store and pick a bottle off the shelf, just random trial and error. And then we'd remember, like, I like the one with that rooster on it. I didn't like the one with
the kangaroo.
I usually say on the show on Wine Wars, I'm not very picky, and I'm really not. So it's just like wine kind of went from to like, wow, there's some really great ones, and then I would keep coming back to those. And then when I moved out to Madison and moved in with Scott and was shortly introduced after that to Ann and Jason, then it was like a whole new world. And so we got to enjoy some really great wine. And then I realized, like, oh, if I just, find grapes that I like better, instead of just randomly trying something based on the picture, because I went to school for art. So it's like the picture on the label was the biggest thing that spoke to me initially.
It's what catches your eye.
Yeah. So, and anyway, here I am. And I still drink, like, I had a mini bottle of Sutter home earlier today, because I will drink a wide range of stuff.
It gets the job done.
And then you want to show them what we're drinking today?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't know if you're drinking on your end, but we're drinking a Joseph Bruyère. There we go.
Nice.
Who you say?
Yeah. And this isn't just like Monday night wine. This is
I was having trouble with the audio equipment, so I had to bust something nice open.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's fun. I'm drinking over here. I've got a 2013 Guy Breton Regenie, which is from Beaujolais. So
I love
really,
Beaujolais.
Yeah, really nice. I actually opened it last night. Oh, sorry. I opened it last night, and so now it's like day 2, and it's really like opened up and really just beautiful.
I've heard that about Beaujolais. I think I remember from our episodes we've done on them.
Yeah, that's one that just in the last 6 months or so, really the last 2 months, that I've really gotten into it. It's I know it's a big thing in the sommelier world. It's kind of a hidden gem for the sommeliers that are in the know, but for the average wine drinker, you kind of just know, what's the producer. There's a really famous Beaujolais producer. Right? It's like a
George Duboeuf.
Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah, famous for his Beaujolais Nouveau.
Yeah,
which
is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the one where we had it like within a month of it being put in a bottle in France?
That's the Nouveau style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But I had a kind of it was actually a Gamay grape from Loire. It's called Mon Cher, but same style, and it just blew me away. And so I've been trying to look more into that. Anyway.
Well, cheers to you guys. We didn't cheers
likewise.
Yet, but I could. That's a glass
Thank
to you. Yeah. I look like a dud on my end. You've mentioned your co-hosts for the Wine Wars podcast. So it sounded like it started as a friendship, and you said the connection through the band. So then how does the idea to sit down in a room and start a podcast, where did that come from?
So that came from, we were out drinking, as you do in Wisconsin in the winter.
And winter's long. Winter's like 6 months.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of time to brainstorm.
Yeah. And we were, I've been a fan of podcasts as a medium for 7-8 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And they've just kind of been a standard part of our lives now. It's people that listen to podcasts, it's very much just ingrained into their daily lives.
Right. But you also met Jason working at a music and sound equipment shop. So that was another facet of your understanding of how that works.
How that works, right. So we were out seeing a band in Madison, a band from LA called King Washington, who are great. You should check them out.
Oh, yeah, they are awesome.
But we were just hanging out at the bar, chatting, and somehow this idea popped into our heads, and I got really excited about it. The next day, went to work and wrote up a treatment of like, here's what the show should be. and like kind of a breakdown structure of intro. And typically we'll do 3 bottles and then an outro. And like, that was kind of the rough idea. And then we kind of tried it out. So Jason and myself being musicians, we have the audio equipment to put something like this together, which isn't a ton. You don't need a whole lot really to be able to podcast.
No.
We kind of have overkill, but it's nice to have that. So we did a couple pilot trials, and we're like, we sound really awkward. And then,
well, we've never done it before.
Right.
Usually we just hang out and drink wine without microphones in our faces.
Right. So you kind of have to just get used to the mics, ignoring the mics and just existing as it's. But it just naturally evolved from, this is a good way for us to, we all like wine. We all like certain types of wine, we think, but it became a really good way for us to focus study. So that was kind of the main idea is we'll go through each week and we originally were going to do each week, but our checkbooks and livers can't handle that. So we'll go through every other week and focus on something. So Beaujolais, we do an episode on Beaujolais. So we did a Beaujolais Nouveau, just a standard Beaujolais and then a Cru Beaujolais. So like, here's what's important about that region, or important about a grape. So we might do an episode on Sauvignon Blanc. So we'll talk about Loire, Sancerre. We'll talk about New Zealand, and then California or whatever, So to show that there's so much broad knowledge about wine, it was a way to kind of hone in on that, try to focus on the subjects and make it fun to study.
Well, yeah, I think basically our objective was to make it fun and educational, but also enjoyable for somebody who was just starting on their wine journey, as much as somebody who they'd been around for a while.
Yeah.
So,
and we're by no means experts. And we make that very clear, especially when we talk about French wine, we can't pronounce anything. But that's kind of our mentality behind this as well, is that wine is very intimidating for an average wine drinker. So usually you might just stick with, well, I know Cabernet Sauvignon, so that's all I'm gonna drink, and that's all I'll drink my whole life because I know that. So we try to approach it from a standpoint of, hey, you're just hanging out with some friends, chatting about wine, and breaking down, trying to keep, like you said, keep the subject entertaining, but also get the wine nerd knowledge in there.
Just kind of demystifying it a bit too, just making it more approachable.
Right.
So that people like me who are just like looking on, the middle shelf at the grocery store could maybe learn enough to feel comfortable branching out. And actually, a really good example of that is I had a lady friend come over and visit a few nights ago, and I told her, I'll order a pizza, you stop by the grocery store and grab a bottle of wine. She's like, oh, you're Wine Boards podcast person. What do you want? I'm like, no, really, just grab whatever you want, because I'm the one on the show who will drink anything. And so she shows up and she brought a rosé from Côte de Beaune.
Oh. Okay.
And I was so surprised because
Pinot Rosé.
Yeah, I was. So that's my friend Jess. Like, way to go, Jess. She branched out of her comfort zone and tried something. And she's like, I know about it because of the show. And I was so proud. So I forgot to tell you that.
That's great. We're changing lives.
We are changing lives.
One episode at a time.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that you described the show in a nutshell for people who haven't heard it. It does feel like you're just dropped into a conversation between you four in a basement. Sometimes I remember the first couple, I was just like, what is going on? Because you're just like, I think I started with a random episode. So I had no idea really who the four of you were and, and all this, because you guys share like about your personal lives. So, I have no context whatsoever for some of the, sidebars of the main episode. But once you listen to a couple, you're like, okay, I get what's going on here. And you start to figure out.
That again, that kind of just naturally evolved. I think originally we weren't intending as much to have it be as conversational and as much about our daily lives or whatever. Like, oh, have you seen Stranger Things? You got to watch Stranger Things. But that just kind of naturally happened with this. I mean, when you're drinking wine, it's a social event.
Yeah.
So there's lots of podcasts out there that are just all about here's the information.
Nothing but the facts.
Right. And I can enjoy that for myself when I want to just,
cram in the knowledge.
Right. But for
people like me,
right.
Like, I need bells and whistles.
Right.
So
I think that just kind of naturally happened. But yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, I think it would be really hard to try to go back to a strictly educational type of format, because it's just like, I think that's when we were the most nervous, because we started out doing that. And then when we just relaxed and let ourselves just be ourselves, that's when we started just, I don't know, being much more prolific and having fun with it.
Yeah. You can pepper in, most wine regions, the average drinker doesn't care what the soil type is. So, you can, if it's really important, like something like a white Burgundy, then you can talk about that. But if it's a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, the soil isn't as important. So you kind of just have to focus on what are the key elements to relay, and then you can pepper in the nerdiness here and there between the banter. So
when you prepare for a show, you mentioned your outline and guide, who's directing traffic in terms of like how to keep things going? Because I think you do a great job of keeping it conversational, but at the same time, I got most recent memory as your most recent episode of the Chateauneuf de Pop, which you got to do twice.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of practice with that pronunciation. Yeah. So how do you go about sort of working your way through, the 3 bottles, or what you're going to say, adding in that knowledge? Do you have a sheet? Does everyone bring notes? How does, what's the background look like?
It can vary a little bit. The most common thing is that I get way too much information.
And then you type it up.
And I type it up. But I'll try to research it ahead of time and then find those key elements that are important. So just going back to Beaujolais again as an example, if we can pick, what 3 wines can we get that best represent this region or this grape, or whatever we're trying to focus on, and then try to say, okay, so we'll get a Cru Beaujolais. Can you two get a Nouveau and a regional Beaujolais? And then we try to research the producers a little bit beforehand. But then I'll kind of go through all my wine books, pour through online resources, and try to identify those key areas to talk about. We'll kind of chat a little bit about it beforehand and say, here are the key things we want to talk about, and then plot out the order of which wines, usually from like cheapest to most expensive, maybe, which we probably should do in reverse because we get drunkest at the end. You can't taste as well. But we try to plot it out like those key beats. And then in terms of moving the plot along, as it were, it just kind of naturally happens. I mean, you can only drink, when you take a bottle of wine divided by 4 people, you only get a glass and a half of wine. So when we run out of that wine, we kind of move on to the next bottle usually.
Yeah.
But then we also try to, again, this wasn't intentional, but we also try to pair it somehow with a meal and say, this was really good with, so if we're going to have like an Italian wine, so we'll make a pasta dish with red sauce of some kind and say, here's how they play off of each other. Again, kind of just sneaking in the knowledge in a conversational way. And I guess it's not intentional, but the more I think about it, it kind of is.
Well, because here's how I approach it. I don't study. So we go over to Ann and Jason's, and you've got your notes that he's handed out to all of us. And so basically, like, it's usually Jason and I will cook, and then we all sit down to eat, and we're like I'm reading notes while we're drinking the wine and eating the food.
And yeah, as we're eating, we all kind of make notes about the individual bottles of, oh, this one's really peppery, or this one's really tannic, or whatever it is. That way, when we get on the mics, we are prepared for that. Because that's one thing, and myself in particular, I'm probably the worst taster of the 4 of us. I would say Amy and Ann are quite good. And that's actually a gender thing, that women naturally are better tasters. So good for you.
Yeah. Well,
you get that one.
I get it. I got it.
Yeah. But then that way, again, it kind of just naturally flows versus, well, I'm going to smell and like, is that peach or apricot? I don't know what that,
Yeah.
So and that's something that we all can kind of rely on each other's strengths. If we're drinking a wine, I usually quiet down during the tasting discussion and let them take over. And then when we get back to the nerd stuff, I'll pipe up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think also because like you guys are in a band, and Anne and I have been band wives for a long time, that we don't have too much of a problem talking over each other very much. It's usually if we have a guest on that it gets really crazy, because 4 people is already a lot. And initially I was like, are you sure you need me to be there? Because I'm not a wine expert. I'm never going to seek higher education for this. I'm just along to enjoy the flavorful ride. And they were like, no, we need your taste descriptors and your energy. So.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it's intended to be more laid back and conversational, and hanging out with some friends at a. So it's kind of just turned into a dinner party podcast, kind of, which we like. It's turned out really well for us. So.
Yeah, it's great. It's enjoyable. I think it's, as you're talking about the behind the scenes, I realize it's such a good template for anyone who really wants to learn about wine. You could almost just go down the episode list, and even if you don't want to listen to them, but you should, you could use the titles and the subject matter as a guide to really just walk you through stuff and be like, okay, this week we're going to do Beaujolais. And then you could pick 3 wines, get together, have dinner. And then you think about that. If you do 3 wines every other week,
right,
in a year, you'll have like 75, 80 wines. And
exactly.
That's incredible. I mean,
and that's something too, if you're trying to study on your own, it can be very cost prohibitive. If you're getting together with some friends and everyone brings a bottle, you get to try 75 wines versus 25. So your palate gets exposed to a lot more information, and then you start to learn more about what you like, what you don't like, and discovering things that you've never knew existed.
Didn't we find a Syrah that Jason liked?
Yeah, Jason is notoriously anti-Syrah. It's Shiraz in particular, same grape, Shiraz. But we've Chateauneuf de Pop, has a lot of Syrah in it, and he really dug that. So you're able to find the saying that we have. So from the Wine Maniacs, our kind of mentor from there, Jeff Cox, the head wine guy, he has a saying of "Don't blame the grape." If there's something you drink, if you have a California Chardonnay that's super oaked, high alcohol, and you hate it, you probably don't hate Chardonnay. You just hate that style of Chardonnay.
Yeah.
You may love a white Burgundy, a Puy Frisé, or Chablis, which is one of our personal favorites for white wine. So don't become so discouraged if you have one bad glass. Keep trying. And in that kind of setting where you have a handful of friends come over and everyone brings a bottle of wine, it really opens up that world to you.
Totally.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially on the grape varietal. I think so many people have one bad experience, and it's like they've tainted the well, especially Chardonnay, which is stylistically, probably one of the widest ranges of, from lean and steely bright in certain parts of Chablis to, over oaked and terribly made Chardonnay of California, in certain regions. And then there's everything in between.
Absolutely.
California is beautiful Chardonnay, and France has probably some not so great Chardonnay.
Sure.
So it's just a matter of continually tasting. And like you said, if you use some kind of guide or a tasting group, I love the varietal tasting party. Like everyone brings a Chardonnay or everyone brings a Shiraz, Syrah. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize they grew Syrah here, or they made it this way, or they did it.
Exactly.
Someone may bring a South African Shiraz, And if you're like, well, I didn't even know South Africa made wine. It's like, yeah, they're in the game. They're fighting. So yeah, and other like grapes that might have, like Riesling is one that I think would be really good for that, because there's so many different styles of Riesling as well. That's when everyone bring a bottle and be like, oh, I really like the, super dry, or I really like the super sweet.
Yeah, I remember, you don't remember that bottle of wine from the pasta bar or pasta tree or whatever it was.
Loring Pasta Bar? The Montepulciano?
Yeah, okay, so I don't have a bottle that I remember.
Oh, okay.
No, I take it back. I have a bottle that I remember. It was a specific moment, the moment that I realized that there is dry Riesling.
Yes.
And it was because of Jeff Cox. And it blew my mind. And because I was always like, what? And, I say, oh, I'll drink all the wine. But Riesling is sometimes a little too sweet. And so he suggested it to me. And I'm like, you're just saying that because I'm a girl. You think I like sweet wine, whatever. And he's like, no. I think you're really going to like this dry Riesling. It's got all of the like fruit floral without the sugar. And I tried it, and I think we bought like half a case that night.
Yep.
Because I was so impressed.
That was another one for me as well.
So I remember that bottle and that day. I don't remember the day, but the date. I remember the day. I just forgot. It
was New Year's Eve, 2013.
Oh, you are good.
Leading into
14. You're a steel trap.
Yeah.
I think it's by Scott. Got it all up there.
Yep. And if I don't, I fix it in post.
Yeah. Yeah.
The power of editing, where you can make yourself sound brilliant.
Exactly. It's why the show's so great.
The show is really great. And I don't mean to say that just because you're here and I'm looking at you, but it's really enjoyable. It's also really well done. And I think that's one of those things that speaks volumes, because the barrier to entry right now is low, right? I mean, here I am sitting, doing this summit. You're at home doing a wine podcast, but to make it sound good and intelligent and fun, that's where the magic really is. So what advice do you have for people who are considering starting a podcast and maybe doing something similar to Wine Wars, and like getting a group of people together, sitting around, having a conversation?
Yeah, everyone has not everyone, but you can get yourself a laptop. If you have a Mac, it's got GarageBand on it. You can get yourself what's called an audio interface. You can usually get like a 2-channel audio interface, meaning you can plug 2 microphones into them. Get yourself some condenser microphones, which are what we're talking into right now, so they pick up more broad sound. It might not sound as good because you're going to pick up more room sound, but it's a good way to start. You can kind of just set up the 2 mics. But I guess that's actually a key thing. If you are going to do podcasting, be very aware of sound.
Yeah, actually, that was the first thing I was going to suggest, because there have been, and not just about wine, but there have been shows that I've listened to, and like, oh, somebody told me to check this out, I'll give it a listen. And the sound quality is so bad, or there's like a ringing, like a high-pitched buzz, or dogs barking in the background, or kids playing with their toys. And it's like, I just turn it off. I don't even want to listen, or like a neighbor chainsawing their trees for the whole hour, or running a leaf blower. And it's like, just common sense, like, I know it's tough, especially if you maybe live in an apartment or have a family or whatever, but if you can just squirrel away 45 minutes where, hey, like, go to the library, go to the park. I mean, the other people, not you. You stay home and you send people away, and you get somebody to walk the dog, or give them a treat, put them in another room. Like, you probably can't tell, we have 3 very noisy corgis, but they are dealt with. Because otherwise we couldn't hear anything, and it would be a terrible episode.
Yeah. So you can get yourself some equipment fairly cheap. Talking maybe a few $100. There's even microphones that you can plug directly into your computer. It looks like you're using one right now. USB microphones that you can plug right in. And then get yourself some recording software. I use Pro Tools. personally. Being a musician, that's kind of the standard recording software that we use. So we record into Pro Tools on Jason's rig, and then I take that home on a jump drive wrapped around my wrist. And then the next day I boot it up on my system at home and start working on the editing. And then kind of, like you said, focusing on that music, you can get what are called plugins for your software that will, so compressors are probably one of the most necessary things that you'll have to have. In a nutshell, that essentially takes the loudest sound and the quietest sound and kind of squeezes it down to make more consistent volume. Especially if people are listening in their cars, you don't want to have really quiet portions and then really loud portions. Otherwise, they're riding the volume button through their whole commute.
Is that why we do the levels every day before an episode?
Yes.
Yeah. So then we have to be really loud into the microphone.
Because we will be loud.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you got to make sure there's just kind of standard audio tricks. And luckily, like you said, there's so many resources now. You can go onto YouTube and spend an afternoon just learning the basics. And within a couple days, you can be up and running, and try a few pilots. So get in front of the mics, learn how to be comfortable in front of them, understand that you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Especially with podcasting, you can edit after the fact. So if we are talking through a puis fouissé and I say Puy Fumé, which is still a French wine, but that's a Sauvignon Blanc. See, I just fit in the wine nerd stuff right there. We can say, oh, no, I said the wrong one. Hang on, let's stop, let's reset, and then try to pick back up where that conversation was, and then you can edit it in after the fact.
Oh, tell them your trick about the clap.
Oh.
Or a clap, not the clap.
Yeah, not the clap. It's just a trick. So it's to show the peak in audio when you're recording. After the fact, you just clap while recording, and then you'll see a big spike in the sound wave. So we do that as a form of kind of editing.
Like a reset button.
Right, on the fly.
Yeah.
And that's something we've been going for 2 years now, that in my head while we're recording, I'm like, oh, we got to cut that. Got to fix that. Or I kind of screw that up. I'll just reset it without telling everyone. I just reintroduce something. And then after the fact, I cut it, and you don't even notice.
No.
So, yeah, so you get yourself a mic pretty cheap, and then just jump on YouTube, look for those basics.
Yeah, how about for somebody who maybe doesn't want to throw down for Pro Tools?
GarageBand comes with a Mac, operating system. I'm not sure off the top of my head which other ones are free, but you can find ones pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to suggest Fruity Loops, but that's for like DJs.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, that was like big in the 90s.
Oh,
so
it's not a thing anymore.
But Pro Tools is $350, something like that.
Your version costs double.
Okay, so I got it for a birthday a few years ago. But you can find stuff out there probably in that price range. And if all else fails, just bust out your iPhone, set up two of them. One facing each other, one facing like this, one facing the other side, and you can record on that. At least to just get started understanding how the dynamics work on whatever show you're trying to put together.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think there's so many ways to do it cheap, and before you dive off the deep end and drop some cash for a new MacBook, and you figure out if you're any good at it first, because you'll be able to play it back the first episode, and hopefully there's some parts that are memorable, but you'll probably be pretty bad at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you're not like a musician that already has all the sound equipment, you maybe want to try 10 episodes before you decide to graduate to an inexpensive MacBook, for work purposes. So just to make sure that, that you're going to stay committed to it. Because, it's a fun idea. Like a lot of people say they want to do things and then they lose steam somewhere along the line. So
yeah, that is. So I guess in terms of podcasting in general, that is something that it takes a while to build a fan base.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge fan base by any means, but we have seen our numbers. One glass in and I didn't eat dinner. We have seen our numbers rise in the last few months, pretty significantly.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged quickly, stick with it. Most podcast shows take like 2 years before you really build an audience. And if it's something you're trying to get into, like wine in particular, there's actually been a bunch of new shows recently that all popped up. I've noticed a lot of them in the last like 6 months have shown up in the feed. If you just search wine, it'll give you like the top 30 or whatever. And there's lots of new shows, which is great to see. I think there's lots of professionals in the wine industry that are, millennials. I'm assuming you're in the millennial demographic, as am I. She's not. That are familiar with this technology and this medium and are more willing to, they've already lived their lives on the internet. So they're more willing to take a risk on something like a podcast and kind of, maybe I make a fool of myself saying Pouilly Fumé instead of Pouilly Foussé. And, some wine nerd somewhere is going to be like, ugh, these idiots don't know anything. But, again, that's
then the show is not for them.
Exactly. Yeah, go listen to the Guild of Sommeliers podcast if that's what you want.
Right, because they'll probably say it correctly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with the right accent.
Yeah. And, this is also another thing. If you're going to start a show and it's going to be more than just you got to really think about like the schedule, your production schedule, and then like the just daily schedule of your coworkers. Because Ann and Jason are very busy people. They are hard to track down. If we didn't have a podcast with them, I don't know how often we'd see them.
Yeah.
I don't know how often they see each other. They're constantly traveling for work.
It is a lucky byproduct that by doing this, we are able to monthly get together with them. And then, keep in mind that release schedule. So we try to do every other week. And if we can only get together once a month, then we have to double up recordings on one day. Which can be dangerous if you're talking 6 wines. So,
I think we've used a dump cup twice in 2 years.
Yeah. Double dangerous if you have to record one episode twice.
Yeah, if it gets erased.
Yeah. But kind of on that same subject, make sure your co-hosts are people that you want to spend that amount of time with and people that you trust with that shared art form. We're both artists, so I might think of it a little different than an average person talking about a podcast, but this is something that you have to take time and invest in either financially or just in your personal time to edit the episode. Takes a couple hours.
It'd be a shame to invest a whole lot of time and resources into something only to walk away because of creative differences.
Right.
Maybe you didn't know your co-host as well as you thought you did.
Right.
So I guess it's like when you're in a band and you have a relationship with your bandmates, So
yeah, absolutely. It's a working relationship with these people that hopefully you can be friends and work with. So
yeah, and then it's awesome. But if you're like, a coworker that you don't really know, and you're like, you like wine, I like wine, let's do a podcast. It might
fizzle.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah, I believe no great podcast has started that way. You like X, I like X, let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, is that you want some sort of, you need to have that rapport and think through of what is really this format and this information we're trying to relay versus just getting on there and just rambling. You have to have maybe some people can get on the mic and improvise really well, but when you're talking about a subject like wine, there has to be some sort of structure to it.
Yeah, it's actually like the Wine Jedi said. It should be a 2-way or a 3-way. Like you want all the elements to be equally contributing and complementing each other.
Yep.
Instead of drowning each other out.
Yeah. The Wine Jedi being Jennifer Simonetti, who was a master of wine, who found our show as well somehow, and then contacted us, and we were lucky enough to have her on the show. A few months ago, she just put a book out about rosé, and Jason, as a byproduct of this show, discovered he loved rosé.
Mm-hmm.
When we started the show, he was pure red wine, loved his Zinfandel.
Oh yeah, he was like white wine,
right?
And now you cannot get him away from rosé.
Yeah. Rosé and white wine, he loves now. So
yeah. He used to make fun of me that I drank so much white wine, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's just because I have Invisalign. I don't want to stain my teeth." And And then I decided, wow, I really enjoy white wine.
Yeah, who doesn't?
So, I know, it's so refreshing.
Well, there are some people, but
yeah, but no,
To each their
Jason
own.
and I are not those people.
Yep.
Well, it just talks to like your evolution, right? As a wine drinker, everyone starts somewhere. You're not going to know anything about anything. And then it's just one glass begets another, and you get into a rhythm of understanding. And, I think everyone gets in those zones where they're only drinking Zinfandel or they're only drinking Cabernet. And then it takes usually a wine of some really good substance to be like, whoa, what is this all about? What's this varietal over here? Or, a great rosé, right? And you're like, whoa. And then you are opened up to this whole new world, which is so fun because there's wherever you go in the wine world, there's just like another door and another door and another thing.
never ending.
Well, and, maybe you're in a comfort zone, not you personally, Brian, but like just, somebody in general. Let's say they're in a white Zin comfort zone. So then at least try to push yourself to try white Zins from other areas. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, white Zin is a rosé.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's plenty more rosés out there than white Zin.
White Zin Comfort Zone. Wasn't that your band in college, Scott?
Yeah, it was a cover band. We just did we did the White Stripes. We did White Lion, White Snake. We just covered all bands that had white in their title.
Nice. I kind of want a white Zinfandel Comfort Zone t-shirt now, for sure. For sure.
We could make one.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And you guys can get in the merchandise side of things.
That would be fun. Yep. I'm waiting to hear back from Amazon about getting into merch. So we'll see. It takes a while. It's not like you just ask them for a free pass and they say, oh, sure. They're like, no, we're going to, make you wait. Make sure you're legitimate. So
very cool.
We'll see.
Yeah. One last thing. So we've jumping back to the topic of when creating your podcast. So you mentioned iTunes. So that's kind of the standard where most people get their podcasts from. You can just submit to iTunes directly. So look through all the major distributors and figure out how you can get to them. So iTunes, you have to lobby them directly to say, here's our feed, an RSS feed. So you have to get a podcast hosting company. So we go through Libsyn, LYBSIN. And you upload the audio file there, and then they distribute to a lot of different places. iTunes is not one of them, but they do distribute to like Stitcher. What's the one that I use? I can't remember the name of the podcast app that I use. Overcast, which is a really cool podcasting app. They will also go to, what's the thing called? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they will disseminate you through lots of different channels. So look into a podcast hosting website. Libsyn is very popular and reasonably priced. So.
Oh yeah. Like how much cost-wise should somebody expect to pay for that?
It's about $15 a month.
Okay.
It depends on how much content you put out. So we only go twice a month, so we don't have to pay for the higher levels of hosting. If you tried to put something out once a week, twice a week, then you might have to go into the higher levels of payment so you can upload more data. But still, it's pretty reasonably priced. And then once it's uploaded, it's stored in perpetuity. So it's a pretty good deal.
Great. Yeah, you guys ran down the whole basics. I think this is the field guide to how to start your own podcast. It's wonderful. Yep. Thanks for digging deep into some of the technical stuff.
Sure. He loves to nerd out on this stuff. So
geeking
I'm glad
out.
that we have him.
I want to ask you both, what episodes maybe are your personal favorites, and what episodes did you learn the most from, or have the biggest takeaways? And that could be either in terms of just like general wine knowledge, or just like oh, holy shit, I love this wine, and I never even realized it was a thing.
So I'm bringing up our list. So if you want to peruse through our prior episodes.
Oh, I know which list or which episode is my favorite.
Okay. So we did do one on white Burgundy about 2 years ago, I believe, which is where we kind of first got into Chablis. That was one in particular that was a big turning point for me myself. We also did one a year ago. We do what are called splurge episodes. So when anyone has a birthday on the show,
anyone being anyone but me.
Hey, you had one.
I had one.
We were off air at the time. When it's your birthday, you get to pick the wines or the topic, whatever it may be. So 2 years ago, I picked doing Bierzo Spain, Bierzo, which is the Mencia grape, which is not very well known. But we happened to go to a distributor tasting at the Wine Maniacs years ago, and they had one from Bierzo. And we got 2 of their wines, which were pretty pricey. The one in particular was, I think, like $50 or $60, something like that.
Oh, was that the lady distributor with the long black hair?
It was the younger woman.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Younger woman lady.
I think she was the daughter of the winemaker. But
because she really knew her stuff. I was so impressed. It wasn't like, I'm just here to sell it. She knew details.
Yeah. But that was one where we had it at the tasting, and when you're going around, and I think they had 40 different bottles of wine that they were pouring, so your palate gets a little jacked up there. So, and it was one of the last ones we had, so of course we're like, oh, this is amazing. But we bought a couple bottles. So we actually, by chance, Jason bought like the lower tier, and then we bought kind of like the middle and the upper, or some variation thereof, all from this one producer. So this was one episode that we did, and I'll find the number on it. But we popped those open and just blew my mind. It was just turned out to be such an amazing tasting that we did. Let me see if I can find that.
Oh, you just passed Bierzo.
Number 36. Episode number 36, Bierzo Spain. So the producer was Raul Perez. So for me, that was one that was probably one of my most favorite to record. What about yourself?
Well, I was going to say, if you played the intro to number 9, that was my favorite. That was the most memorable.
So what happened?
Well, you're not going to play it then?
Oh, no, tell us.
Well, Anne and I almost were killed by a champagne cork. And so the intro is basically just us chit-chatting, and then pop, and then screaming, because I get startled very easily. So the first thing I do is scream really, really loud. And it almost hit Anne in the face. I think it whizzed right by her cheekbone or something. And it was, and we learned a valuable lesson on episode 9. When you have
the cage, it's called
the cage on the bottle, don't loosen it up and walk away. Like, finish what you started.
Yep.
So
it's on there for a reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just unscrewed all the cages to make the process quicker when we got to the wines. But the wine wasn't going to wait, so it just shot the cork.
It's like, you're going to drink me now. It was really fun, because it was one of those moments where, like, you hope to catch something crazy like that on air or whatever, and it happened. So it's just, somebody almost died.
Yep. And that one was a splurge episode for Anne on her birthday.
It was.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would pick champagne probably for my birthday episode. If I'm ever invited to
absolutely
the podcast, that's what I'll pick.
Totally. Where are you at?
I'm in Chicago, so just
really?
down the road.
Yeah.
We could totally do that. That's not far.
It'll be fun. I'd be happy to take a road trip. Now I got to go to this Wine Maniacs place that I somehow never heard of. I've got to make a pilgrimage.
Totally.
Yeah.
To the epicenter of the wine world, Madison, Wisconsin.
Yep. Yeah. So that was, like I said, that's where we kind of first found our wine Jedi, as it were. We're Padawans in the wine. So we haven't even talked about the Star Wars half of the show. That's the other half, is we also all love Star Wars. So we try to talk about wine and Star Wars and our journey from wine Padawan, which is like the novice, to a wine Jedi. So we also do episodes where we talk about, just Star Wars. So like The Force Awakens came out and we all loved that. Rogue One came out and half of us loved it. Half of us hated it.
We didn't hate it. We just did not love it as much as you did.
Right. So that's peppered in there as well. So again, more of that conversational. It's just, you're hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
Chatting. So
yeah.
You will have to take me under your Star Wars wings because it was something, it's not something I dislike. It's just something that I just completely missed the boat on. It was not a thing in my household. I wasn't sat down to watch those at a young age and appreciate them. And so I've always just lived on the outside of the Star Wars world. And I've wanted someone to take me in. It's much like wine, right? You want someone to be like, oh, come here. Let me show you all this amazing wine.
By yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like, what am I going to do? Sit down and watch it over a day, lock myself in a room? I guess I probably need a couple of days now
you probably.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
With wine.
Yeah, that maybe, make that your the words are escaping me at this point. Make that your what do you get when people come together for dinner?
A party.
Yeah, what was the other word?
A potluck.
Whatever. Yeah, you have some friends come over, have a dinner, and then you watch a
celebration.
Dinner party. There we go. When you have a party at dinner, a dinner party.
You're good.
Well, I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm 2 glasses in.
Okay, so for somebody who did not grow up like with Star Wars, are there certain movies he could just maybe not watch?
Don't watch the prequels. Okay. That's a safe bet. The episode, you want to watch 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you can go back to Rogue One. Then just leave off the prequels, the 1, 2, 3, episode 1, 2, 3, leave those off. But and it's kind of intimidating as well in the world of Star Wars. There's lots of like there's cartoon shows, animated series that kind of expanded as well. And we're not, super nerds there as well. So our main loves are the 3 from the 70s and 80s, and the new ones. Rogue One.
He's a Rogue One person. I'm a Force Awakens person.
Yeah, no, Force Awakens was better. But anyway, we've gone off topic.
That's what we do.
It's a great parallel, though. I think it's so fun in meeting so many people for the summit. What sort of things they use as like wine metaphors, and I never even thought about the Star Wars thing because it's very perfect for an outsider like me. Like I'm way into wine, but looking at Star Wars. And I see like conventions and people who are just nuts about it. Yep. And, people who haven't unboxed their toys from their childhood. And, you look at all these things, right? And it's very much similar to wine. You have collectors, you have all of these different pieces. So it's a good analogy. So I think if someone's like me and they have Star Wars phobia, perhaps, to not have wine phobia, like someone will drag you in. Yeah, I'm not even afraid of it. I'm just, maybe I'm afraid of liking it too much. That could be it.
It can be expensive if you get into the figurines and stuff,
See?
like I suppose like an original Luke Skywalker figurine mint in box would be similar to like what? Like a Barolo that's
just in terms of like the general
the prestige.
Prestige, yeah. There is they made playing cards. And I don't know how blue we can go on this interview, but there was one of C3.
Like.
There's one of C3PO where he had a metal extension, and there was a limited run of those playing cards that are pretty sought after.
See, it's all about knowing these weird intricacies, right? But enjoyment of Star Wars is very face value. Like you can go in and watch a movie and be entertained. Then you can drink a bottle of wine and feel good.
Not know anything about where it grew or what it took to get into your glass.
And knowing more about it doesn't necessarily mean you enjoy it more, right? So there's people that nerd out about Star Wars and they know every little bit of information. They have literally like the blueprints of the Millennium Falcon and they understand how the hyperdrive works and all this crap.
I think when you nerd out to that level, you kind of enjoy it more.
Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the people who, same thing with wine. Someone who studies, the wine Bible back to front. Weird that they read it in reverse, but they have more knowledge. But that doesn't mean they enjoy a glass of a Puy Fouissé more than someone who doesn't spend hours poring over those books. So it is very good metaphor. I had never really thought of that. So.
Great. So what was the last great glass of wine you had?
So we just did we had a splurge episode for myself, and we did red Burgundy.
Oh yeah.
So we did. I'll have to look up the producer because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But we had a premiere crew from the year 2000. That was phenomenal. It was from. I'll have to.
It was
here.
bottled when you were 17, and it's a 17-year-old bottle.
Yeah. So it was a Francois Jobard. So it was from Blani, which is actually in the Côte de Beaune. So I'm going to nerd out for a second.
That's okay. Do you want to show him the label so he can see what you're nerding out about?
See that?
Oh, it's reversed, but
it looks good on my end. I got
okay.
it.
All right.
So it's the Blani region is actually between Montrachet and what's the other one next to it? Just to the west of Montrachet. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But regions that are more known for Chardonnay than Pinot Noir. So Blani actually crosses the border between those two regions and does Pinot Noir. So it was very different from what you might normally expect from a Côte de Beaune Pinot Noir, red Burgundy. But since it was from the year 2000, it was just like brick red, aged well. Tannins softened out a lot, and it wasn't terribly expensive. We got that. So there's a wine shop in Madison called Square Wine Company. So Andrea and Emily there, they take care of us all the time. So they're kind of another wine Jedi pairing that we go to. And that was only $45. So exactly. It's rare to find a premier cru that, in that price range. You could maybe if it's like 2013 or something like that,
sure.
But not a 2000. So being that this is such a small plot of land in Côte de Nuit rather than Côte de Beaune, you were able to get it at that cheaper price.
Just because it was grown on less illustrious real estate?
Yeah, Blani's not doesn't have the prestige as something that from Côte de Beaune region would have.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last great one for me. And that episode will actually air in 2 days from our recording. So July, what is 2 days from now? 27th? June 28th. So
Okay.
People watching this would be able to listen to it right now and hear our response.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same for you, or what about you? Was it your Sutter home earlier today?
Well, when you, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not picky. I like all the wines.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was really good.
Yeah.
I might have to get on board and say, because that one, also the nose on that, like I couldn't take my nose out of the glass hardly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
This one's really good.
Yeah.
So this Puy Foussé.
Mm-hmm.
See, I like all
She's
the
getting
wines.
it.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Well, that's great. I can't think of a better way to end, and a great plug for your, I guess, at this given moment, your most recent episode. But if people want to check out the back catalog and learn more about both of you as individuals outside of Wine Wars, which we didn't even discuss, so we'll have to get to that in a part 2.
Yeah.
How can people find out more about the podcast and then both of you?
So you can follow us on Twitter at Wine Wars Podcast, on Facebook. Just search for Wine Wars Podcast there.
Instagram.
We're on Instagram. We're not very good Instagrammers. We get. I'm trying to be better about it.
I have a 13-year-old cousin who's probably going to be awesome at it.
Intern.
Get her on board.
Yeah, I'm not a very good millennial at being a millennial. But Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you wanted to email us, you can contact us at winewarspodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere podcasts are found. Just search for Wine Wars. We should pop up. You can also follow myself on Twitter at Ambient Swelling, and that's kind of a musical joke. We'll get into that in part 2.
And then I'm on all the social media at amighcannaday.com.
Mm-hmm.
Amy spelled EMIGHCANNADAY.
Yep.
And
then
that's my website too. If you want to read fantasy romance books,
Who
I do
doesn't?
that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Lord of the Rings with love. Less fighting, more love.
More love. A great place to wrap for today. Thank you both so much, Scott,
Thank you
Amy.
for
It
having
was
us.
a pleasure talking to you. I can't wait to meet you guys both over a glass of wine and
We'll
maybe
make it
the
happen.
whole
Yeah.
line. If you're ever in Chicago, please just send me a note and we'll grab something or at least go.
Hopefully you've got the cliff notes on how to start your podcast, although don't pick Star Wars and wine as the intersection of your themes. Scott and Amy already take care of that on the Wine Wars podcast, where they're joined by the other half of their wine and Star Wars loving crew, Jason and Ann. If you've got questions for Scott, Amy, or me, use the comment section below and check out the interview notes for links to things discussed in our conversation.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wine Wars.